Write what you know. For students attending Maple River High School in southern Blue Earth County, this is what they often think they know. It is the most boring place on earth. What high school student doesn't want to fly the coop in search of greener pastures? After all, if you were to spend half an hour of your life driving around our school district, you'd see farms, fields, and a few rivers. Dull, right? Perspective often allows adults the opportunity to see things much differently. And as the kooky storyteller at Maple River, I see it as my job to provide the expository scene found in most movies where the teacher reveals the hidden truth about the nondescript town in which the story is set. Hey, did you know? At another school, my students might have written tales about the Jolly Green Giant and Sprout, Paul Bunyan and his bovine exploits, or the adventures of King Colonel and his corn palace. Fortunately, Blue Earth County was loaded with intrigue, mystery, history, and the bizarre. Since I'm an English teacher, and not a history teacher bound to just facts, these are a few of the stories I tell them about their hometown. Beneath the surface of these fertile farm fields are nuggets of lore just waiting to be mined. While the Civil War waged in the East, pioneers in the area feared for their lives during the Dakota War of 1862. One of the 4 towns that forms the Maple River community, Good Thunder, is named in tribute for a man who chose peace rather than violence, altering the course of our local history. Prior to that, French scientist Joseph Nicolet crossed through our district twice while making his map of the upper Mississippi Territory, leaving behind local labels such as Minnesota, Mankato, Blue Earth, LaHillier, and LeSueur, while investigating the legends of the Dakota's Spirit Lake, the Ojibwe's Turtle Island, and the most curious legend of them all, the Undine. The Undine? Even though Nicolet prominently labeled the region of south-central Minnesota as the Undine region, the name did not catch on, probably for good reasons. You see, the Undine has 2 possible meanings. First, is it an old Germanic tale, very similar to the Little Mermaid tale, about a water nymph haunting a mysterious pool of water, waiting to lure a young human to his eventual death. Romantic, huh? The second meaning is more nefarious, yet more probable. Before the popularity of the Undine in the tragic German love story, it was a term used by alchemists, another name for wizard. In centuries past for the element of water. There was also sylph, salamander, and gnome were the elemental symbols for air, fire, and earth. Do a little Wikipedia digging into alchemy, and you'll learn that these wizards, scientists, studied these 4 primitive elements on a quest to discover the missing element of even older lore, the philosopher's stone. As a scientist in 1838, Nicolet would have known this since alchemy shifted to a respectable chemistry as recently as the previous century. Besides making stops at any lakes that had potential connections to Indian lore, Nicolet also made a point of visiting the legendary places written by his countrymen, LeSueur and Lahontan. While Lahontan's name is all but lost to us, LeSueur has a town, county, and river named after him because of Nicolet, who just wouldn't let it go. Both Lahontan and LeSueur were wealthy explorers and fur traders back in the 1680s, when hardly anything was known about America west of the Ohio River Valley. Instead of focusing on making money by selling furs, both men were lured in by rumors of a western tribe, the Dakota, who painted their faces with strange blue paint, the Blue Earth. Despite the inherent danger, both men made trips to this place where the earth bled blue. In their accounts, they found a place where a massive mound of copper vitriol was found beside a river near a watershed. After both men privately visited the site, Pierre-Charles LeSueur made a really big deal about what he found. He took some of the copper vitriol he found and traveled all the way back to France to seek an audience with the king. After trouble with financing, an Indian uprising that threatened Canada, and English pirates, yes, this is a true story, he finally found funding for an expedition that gave him a private army and hired miners to travel back to this location so he could open a copper mine near present-day Mankato, which, by the way, was almost 1,000 miles away from anybody who could use the copper. Thanks to his in-laws, who rediscovered the Mississippi Delta for him, he and his expedition sailed all the way upriver where he built Fort LaHillier, named after the alchemist who verified the samples he brought to France were the real deal. According to history, LeSueur and his crew spent a year mining tons of copper ore, which he faithfully packed in barges to send to his in-laws in the Mississippi Delta. One problem: whatever he spent so much time and energy digging up was not copper ore. Oops. Lesueur returned with his ore first to Louisiana and then to France. But instead of being punished for the most colossal blunder in American history, he was rewarded with the leadership of Alabama. So in 1838, Joseph Nicolet came through our school district twice to try to make sense of this strange legend. Did Baron Lahontan write copious historical notes in his book only to make a complete fable out of the chapter involving the land of the fabled Blue Earth? Did Lesueur waste King Louis's money and resources on misdiagnosed copper by one of France's richest and most powerful men, the alchemist La Houlier? Well, Joseph Nicolet was an internationally respected scientist who was a bit of a whiz or wizard, depending how you see him, with astronomy, geology, barometry, math, and cartography. So when the United States government hired him to make a map of the upper Mississippi, they hired the best. Yet leaking onto his map were strange details. Scientifically, there were no reason to make 3 passes through Blue Earth County, yet he did. The results? He labeled things according to legend rather than science. The Cannon River was labeled as the Lahontan River. The La Prelle was relabeled as the Lesueur River because Nicolet believed he'd found the place where both men discovered the vitriol. What about the Undine? Well, Nicolet ties all those weird legends together with this fun little play on words involving water spirits and alchemy. Nicolet did find traces of the blue vitriol at Fort La Houlier, just across Highway 90 and Highway 1 from Mount Cato, so he felt confident he'd found the location described by his 2 embarrassing countrymen. For full disclosure, though, whether it was playfulness or validation, Nicolet's use of Undine, along with the Blue Earth, connects the dots for the alchemy legend. What was the legend? Well, alchemists like Nicolas Flamel, Christian Rosenkreutz, and Paracelsus believed the byproduct of the original philosopher's stone was vitriol. There is even a legend about the word vitriol. Alchemists, who later became legitimate scientists, use a Latin acronym for vitriol. The Latin translates as, "Visit the interior of the earth. By rectification, thou shalt find the hidden stone." Huh? So was Nicolet punking us with this map, or was he serious? Regardless, this ordinary school district has some fun lore, huh? That brings us to the title itself, The Haunted Valley. Thomas Hughes was a lawyer in Mankato for 52 years, and he also wrote several important historical books about the area. It was where I started in my own research. He gives a professional discussion of all these historical names I've referenced, but in his 2nd chapter of History of Blue Earth County, he gives an assortment of legends which he calls Indian Legends of the Blue Earth. Just like what I've done in this preface, he talks about what a nice place Blue Earth County is to live, but then transitions into disturbing lore. First, he explains that the Dakota had a region known as the Haunted Valley, which began at the confluence of the Watonwan and where it meets the Blue Earth River, which was forbidden to enter unless you were trying to hide. Then he goes on to tell tales of murders, monsters, and tragedies that happened in this strange place, which we call home. Since the days of Thomas Hughes, Blue Earth County has seen floods and droughts, fires and blizzards, tragedies and hardships, but is also the curling capital of southern Minnesota, a place to fish, a place to bike, canoe, and snowmobile. It's as heartland as heartland gets. We have beautiful lakes, rivers, and campgrounds. So, pretend you are sitting down beside the campfire and let the students and staff at Maple River High School tell you a few modern tales worthy of the heritage of the Haunted Valley.